When it comes to double bills, which are not that common in opera today, Cav and Pag, as we call them affectionately, are two of the greatest. They were not written to be put together, but they were both written as one-act operas, knowing that something else would be with them, sometimes a ballet, sometimes another opera, sometimes even a recital. They're both on similar themes. They're more or less Sicilian in nature, even though they're not both set in Sicily by any means. And they're about love and jealousy and violence, everything that makes opera worthwhile.
After the kingdom of Verdi, many composers tried a new way, a new language for Italian opera. In my opinion, Verdi himself in Falstaff tried the way of a little verismo. And Boito then, and Ponchielli, and they wrote masterpieces that are not yet verismo, but prepare the way for verismo. Then a group of Italian composers, and we can name, of course, Mascagni and Leoncavallo, but also Giordano, also Catalani, Montemezzi, and others. They took inspiration on a literary movement that comes from, especially from our writer Verga, of the south of Italy, Sicily, where the focus was on the real truth of life. And these composers wanted to traduce in music what the drama, the life drama is.
Si può, signore, signori, scusatemi se da sol mi presento, io sono il
The focus was so much on the drama that many critics and even theater managers thought that music was second to the drama. And it is the task of the directors, of conductors, of singers, of the orchestra, of the chorus, to show that there is plenty of music, not just screaming and playing loud accents. No, there are great subtle phrases, great architecture, interesting harmonic solution, melodic solutions. And while critics were always a little, they didn't really say, oh, that's a masterpiece, all the public of the world loved this piece, because it's so true, so close to the feelings of the people that they always loved, and in my opinion, they will love even now.
It's always an advantage for us to build the show for ourselves. We can start from the very beginning and make sure that the show fits within the physical limitations of our schedule and our theater. That's not to say that the designers and the directors don't stretch us beyond what we think the limitations are, but we still, you know, make it to fit in this building. The other thing is that we develop our own culture of techniques and languages, from, you know, building the scenery. It comes down to the shop. The crew looks at it. A lot of the guys that are down here have built it, so they know it. It's not a complete unknown to them. And if they haven't built it, most of them have built some scenery in our shop, so they understand the language and they understand kind of, oh, I get it. This is how these guys always do this, and we get stuff put together a lot easier. So it's always better to build your own shows. And frankly, I think new productions are the measure of a company. They show where you are, and they give you an opportunity to measure your progress, you know, with your other peers. And I think they're really important.
The sharp, scendo.
When Latvia and I began the process on this, we really wanted to treat them as two separate operas, because they are. I mean, they were never written to be performed together, although they are often performed together. And while they both take place in Italy and Sicily, we felt they're kind of two very distinct characters to the opera pieces. So we researched both locations for each one individually and tried to pick up and find authentic aspects of both of them and treat them very differently. Cav takes place really in the middle of town, in a town square. We've chosen to make that a very austere environment. The palette is very almost black and white. It's one of those places that has very intense sun, and so all the walls seem kind of washed out and faded out. It's very intense in that Mediterranean kind of way. Where Pagliacci, we actually chose to put it outside of the town and really try to play up the more bucolic nature of the outside. That's why we have just the kind of gate right outside town, and then you really see the landscape in the background. And as we did the research for both of them, we tried to find authentic aspects for both ones that worked for each piece, such as the carts. So even the carts that are used, the horse carts, we tried to pick up on the Sicilian carts and find the exact research that would have given the local flavor to each one. Even the trees, the one tree that we have in Pagliacci is based on the tree type that you would find in that area. So we really tried to keep them true to each piece as well as each place for both of the operas. The lighting's the most important thing. I mean, really, without how the lighting designer kind of paints the atmosphere of the world into your set, you really have nothing unless you accommodate them and have kind of a collaboration with them.
John sent through preliminaries way back, I think it was probably a good 8-9 months ago, which were forwarded on to me by the company here. And I began to get sort of the flavor of where he was going. And then they took photographs here of the model when it arrived at the company, and again sent them on to me with ground plans. So I had a pretty good idea of sort of the shape of the shows that John was creating. And then actually talking to him about, again, his connection to Latvia and Latvia's ideas and what he was trying to achieve with the set. Each opera actually starts at the beginning of a process, i.e. the beginning of sunrise for Cavalleria, and arrives probably sort of like after midday, whereas Pagliacci is probably starting around midday and progressing through evening, sunset, and then on into night. So it was a very interesting pair to do together in that respect. My job really is to create, I use the term, an appropriate environment for the action. I'm not trying to sort of upstage anybody. I'm trying to, in effect, bring all the elements together with the lighting in such a way that people ideally don't notice it. Because the greatest compliment I can actually receive as a designer is, oh, the show was terrific, oh, you did the lighting, rather than, oh my God, the lighting was terrific, because I've then overstepped my bounds as a designer. I'm part of a team. It's very much a team effort.
The props are very important, I think, you know, because while the sets really give the architecture and the framework of the world, the props are the things that the people, you know, the characters that inhabit the world really use, and they're the things that motivate them a lot of times to do what they're doing. And so they're pretty integral to the whole look, but also as instruments that the performers use.
I'm going down to be a percussionist.
Perfect enough off pitch.
The property master at the San Diego Opera is pretty much in charge of all the furniture and the rugs, the things that you would normally associate with an opera: spears, bottles of poison, champagne glasses, champagne bottles. And then there are the things that you don't really think about as props that are part of our domain: pianos, all the instruments in the pit, the setting of the pit, music stands, hanging of banners out in the lobby where we are, those kinds of things. We have quite a few props in this show, and they are almost all realistic, a few that are stylized, and that presents a challenge because everybody knows what a garland of flowers should look like, so we're constantly trying to come up to that sort of image that people have in their own minds. Sometimes we have things on stage that potentially are dangerous. Blank pistols, knives, swords. And this one is a little bit unique because we actually have a bullwhip, a real bullwhip on stage. And one of our supers is a bullwhip sort of expert. And he worked with Elizabeth to do the whip crack.
Stop for 1 second. When you come up. Just take it. Okay. That would be great if she could hit the floor. That's where the sound is coming. You could do it there too as it gets low to the floor. If you want to wait till it gets there again. Yeah. That's perfect.
We're working with Bruno because we have a buggy whip that he's cracking over the heads of the supers pulling him on. The potential for hitting someone or to bringing that piece of leather back and hitting your own face is there, and so there is a learning curve.
It's quite heavily staged, there's a lot of chorus around, so one has to be careful. One also has to be careful of oneself, because I did actually crack it, and on the way back, got myself. So, but we've come up with a solution which should be satisfactory on the night, I hope.
We try to keep the singing actors as happy as we can, because usually the ones we get here are of a high level, and what they're asking for helps them create their reality, and then when they're singing and acting, we're supporting that sort of vision that they have, and so it can be a little challenging, but this is an excellent group of singing actors.
I don't know if any of you have been in Sicily, because one of the first things they would do, the guys, well, first of all, the pants are always very, very tight. And even they don't put the comb in the back because the pants are so tight. So they have it kind of, and then the minute they come out of the church, they kind of go, comb the hair. No, you don't have to do that. Okay? So, but be very careful, especially for the ladies, that you don't act modern and you don't act flirtatious, because in this society you would be damned. Okay?
Cavalleria, Rusticana, and Pagliacci, they define the category of verismo, the veristic operas, which comes from the Italian word vero, which means truth. And it's about real human beings with real emotions and conflicts, love, betrayal, passion, loyalty, everything that any human being can identify with. They both are wonderful stories, fabulous stories, and very, very strong personalities. And I think they really not only they define for me the veristic style of the opera, but also if you consider opera as music theater, these pieces are really music theater, because the music and the theatrical aspect and the characterizations and all that are so important and so well integrated that for a stage director is a pleasure to do it.
Go after him a little bit. And now she... Take her. And then friends come, turn to your friends, and they say to you, oh, they can, no, it's not possible. No, hold it. Hold it, yeah. She wants to go keep her away from it. Scream! Hanno ammazzato compare Turiddu!
The danger of these two pieces, I think, is the fact that they are so dramatic and so strong. There is a danger of them become melodramatic and old-fashioned, and that's what I've tried to avoid. And I've tried to tell all the artists that there is a major, major line between drama and melodrama. Because this aria, sometimes the tenors, they started crying already at the beginning.
Mama,
yeah,
from that moment on, yeah.
Yeah, and then it belittles it.
That's interesting, that's good.
They've got to be believable. Every second, the audience should understand their emotions and the conflicts and the relationships and all that. It's the height of what opera is, which is music theater. That's what it is. So I think think about this aria, so it doesn't get schmaltzy.
Yeah, and
it gets but it gets someone as someone who's very strong, who understands his mistake now, and he wants to arrange it all if it happens that he dies.
Has this responsibility.
I think that's honorable.
Yeah,
I think that's honorable, and it's positive.
Yeah,
this is what I mean. It's not negative.
Yeah.
So I think okay.
Great.
Madre Santa, bacio, mamma, addio.
Even it seems impossible, even in a jam.
signor, like a ball, like a ball that turns.
Snowball, snowball.
You understand?
Yeah.
Understand?
Okay.
And there is one moment. This must be sung, not screamed. To perform these two operas is really to perform two operas, not one. It takes so much energy and work to prepare each of them that it's really a double bill, a double work for us, the conductors, musicians, and directors also.
Si bianca e rossa come la chirosa, quando da facci fai la vocalisa, pianta cui ti dà lo primo vaso.
I've always loved the opera. Both operas, Pagliacci and Cavalleria. When Ian asked me to do Cavalleria, my first reaction was, oh no, I don't do that. I don't do Toridu. And because it was a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago maybe, when he asked me. And I said, well, you know what? I might be a grown-up tenor by then. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. And sure enough, it was the perfect timing. It feels, finally, this last year that I've worked on it, it just feels like it fits. In the meantime, I've done Pagliacci for the first time as well, so now I sort of have them both under my belt, which is a blast. But, so I'm enjoying it. He's a fun character. He's, you know, he's sort of a bon vivant. He likes life. He as expressed a couple of different ways in the opera. He's pretty much portrayed as a louse because, you know, he's responsible for great unhappiness in this little town. But the reality is, you know, he's not a bad guy, and he loves his mother. And he even loves Santa, whose life he screwed up entirely. So he gets to manifest, I think, his good side, though, enough in this opera that you don't just, he's not two-dimensionally a bad guy. He's actually a reasonable guy. Above all, he's worried about Santuzza and wants her taken care of like he promised he would. And so he's a responsible guy.
I believe that Santuzza is driven by love. Love of a man and love of her faith. And this creates a tremendous conflict in her because, as she says, she's excommunicated because she has, in fact, loved and not been married. So she is incredibly in a pickle. She's just really, really in a pickle. And this, she knows that she is damned, but she is in love. I don't do anything 25%. I just kind of go overboard, especially a role that's verismo, that's really, it's not, you know, a fairy tale. It's something that's real, and you can really draw from your own experiences as a human being, as a woman in love, as a woman who's in a unfortunate situation. We have felt them. There are things that we actually feel, and we can grab from our past. So when I am acting this, it's not something that I don't understand. I do understand. And again, he's got me acting throughout the whole thing. There's not, I don't want to stop acting, start again, stop acting, start again. And he's got me on stage for a majority of the show, so there are not times where I can rest, nor do I want to, because it is although she starts very passionate, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. So it is draining, but, you know, why not?
Forget about the opera, forget about the romance, forget about the poor guy who is betrayed by his wife and blah, 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 blah. All that is the romanticism of the opera, but the message is not there. The message is how a guy who used to be an important star in his business is falling in pieces, is finishing his career. Because he's finishing his career, he's losing power, he's losing influence on people. People who used to bound in front of him, now he's saying, okay, now yeah, but he's finished and he's old and blah, blah. Even his own woman who used to adore him in a way, find some fresh flesh somewhere. That's an incredible picture of the syndrome of the comedian, because that happens to all of us. I mean, each of us, each artist is a potential Canio. first aria is the iconographic one. It's the one that everybody knows. It's the one that that represents, in a way, the fact that no matter how you feel, you have to go on stage and perform. Put it in my situation now. I have 9 hours of jet lag, and still I have to go. Show must go on, and I have to go on stage and do it. And on Saturday, probably I will still be feeling not very recovered from my 9 hours of jet lag, but still I have to go and do the show. And it's my debut in San Diego, and it's my first Pagliacci in California, on all over the continent, by the way. So everybody is going to come and hear what can I do with the role. And nobody will think about the jet lag, this and that. So ridi Pagliaccio, you know, that's the point. I am the man, not the artist. On stage, I am the artist. Outside, no Pagliaccio, no so on. Just look at me for what I am. And I think that's a very important moment in the, not only in opera, but I think in the life of each artist, to make people understand that you are the one behind the mask, not the one in front of the mask. It happens to me so many times in the last years, but a little bit less now because people are starting to know me better because of the whole bit of the traveling and everything. You just meet people personally. But when you don't know somebody personally, the first impression is, Akura, he's an arrogant, you know. I said, why? I don't know, but I have that feeling. I said, why? I had that feeling. I mean, look at the way he performs Othello. Look at the way he performs this. Look at the way I said, for goodness sake, that's not me, that's my characters. If my character is an arrogant, if he's a bastard, if he's a cynic, I'm supposed to be that. Because it's my profession, it's my job, I have to do it, I'm a professional. But I'm not like that. I mean, no Pagliaccio, so I'm not a clown, it's not me, it's the man behind the mask. So that's, for me, the most important moment in the piece.
The role of Nedda is really a fun one to sink my teeth into. I'm really enjoying doing it for the first time. I think one of the things I love most about it is that she is such a real gritty, earthy character. You know, she's just, it's so naturalistic, you know, this piece. Every word she says is in real time. Every sentence, every emotion, you know, it's just exactly how she's feeling at that moment. And so, you know, it's more like an acting role in a sense, even though we're singing our hearts out up there, of course. But I really love that about her. She's quite, she's not terribly complicated, but she's in a difficult situation. And
but she wants something long. Now talk to them.
I like her as a person. I think she's in a bit of a bind, and she's in a relationship with Canio that is an unhappy one for her. Yet she feels indebted to him because he sort of rescued her as an orphan child, and but she doesn't really love him. And she respects and appreciates him, but she doesn't really love him. And so she's having this affair with Silvio, and it is meeting some very deep need for her. And so she's in a bit of a quandary, and he's urging her to leave Canio, and she feels very torn about that, but in the end decides to, and of course that brings the terrible fate in the end of her death. But she's I think a good person, but she's in a situation with lots of difficult elements around her and influences on her. So she doesn't always react in the most pleasant ways. You know, she's not a perfect little angel or anything.
Oh, lasciami, lasciami, per dirti. Non rider, Nedda. Hai tempo. Non sai tu che piano. Spreme il dolore. Non rider. Subito. Nedda. Nedda. Alvina ti puoi risparmiare. No, è qui che voglio dirtelo, è qui che voglio dirtelo.
In a lot of the houses, they will actually cast both operas totally individually. I have done both roles before. Each has its own challenges. I haven't done them both before. Earlier in my career, I vowed I would never do them together again. But of course, with age and maturity and stuff one learns, and actually they become easier, although still difficult, because Cavalleria is still quite a big thing before we even get to Pagliacci, especially the duet with Santuzza. I suppose if I had to pick one role over the other, it would have to be Tonio Taddeo in Pagliacci. It's very rewarding, as I say, because of the different characters one has to play. And of course he starts the whole evening with the the famous prologue, which is a wonderful aria to sing, also challenging in its many moods within the 5 minutes of the prologue. And yeah, it's a very worthy role to sing. When I'm listening to both operas on CD, for example, reacquainting myself with the both roles, I always enjoy so much listening to Cavalleria. It's phenomenal music, but actually in the theatre, and having been in the public myself watching the both, I actually always seem to come out more satisfied with Pagliacci at the end. It's a strange thing, and because Pagliacci has also got beautiful music, and I think probably, well, I love all of it, you know.
Bestia! Quello son, sì. E Pagliacci è partito? Egli partì. Eccolo!
When you get on stage, he rushes both of you. So let's actually go from the ladies' tempo right before the men come in with their 4/4. So this is the last tempo from the ladies, and
on both of these operas, the chorus is busy the entire show, on both of them. And the fact that these are verismo operas, you know, the real life, they can't stand around and sing. If they were walking around the plaza, or they were going to work or to and from church, as they are in this show, they're talking to each other, they're commenting on what they're seeing, they're commenting on what they've been doing and where they're going. And so that means there's a lot of sound from them. And everything that they sing about is about what they're doing. You know, they open Cavalleria with them getting ready for church that morning, and then they go to church, and what do you do at church? You sing, it's Easter morning, and then after church they're going home. And you know, everything they do, they're very, very busy in this show, and particularly with Latvian Couture on this show, they're very much want them to be involved. This chorus is a great chorus for actually moving. They love acting, they enjoy participating in the drama. And I think they both really enjoyed having a group of people who do that, and that takes so well to it. When I'm preparing the chorus for any show, I never know what the director is going to want, or how they're going to be required to move, or what they're going to be required to do while they're singing. So I really consider it my job to make them able to do anything. I very, very rarely will throw a fit about needing them to be in any kind of certain configuration, unless it just doesn't work for stage. I mean, for instance, in the at the beginning of Pagliacci, where they're dancing around in a circle, and it's like, okay, well, let's try it and see if it'll work. And like I said, the chorus is very adaptable, and they kind of enjoy that as a challenge to see how they make it work.
The last thing the men do, they finish theirs. They do half of ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, step. And they come down, they find the lady, they bring them in. Yes, good. Now we go. 4 to the right, 4 to the right. And a step, back, step, front, and kick, step. Keep the space, keep the circle. You're in a little diva shape going on right now. Keep the circle wide. Step, back, step, front. This is the 3rd time. Find your circle. 4th time. Here we go. Spin your partner. 1, 2, 3. Not facing. 1, 2, 3.
Lotfi knew that I had a dance background, and so when he and I started talking about me assisting for him on Cavalleria and Pagliacci, he asked if I would be interested in putting a folk dance on some of the chorus members in Pagliacci, and the more we talked about it, the more I thought it would be a good idea. So I started working on it, did some research on Sicilian and Calabrian folk dance, and started putting together a series of steps that I thought that non-dancers could do.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
I am a choreographer, and I've done a lot of concert dance. I work with professional dancers a lot, but in the last 6 years I've started working with opera singers and opera choruses, and I find actually that I love working with non-movers because there's a certain joy and sense of accomplishment that comes out of accomplishing a dance or folk dance that you don't get from professional dancers. For professional dancers to come in and do a folk dance is very simple, and it ends up looking very polished, which generally speaking, when you're doing a folk dance on stage, it should be a spontaneous expression of a celebration. And chorus does that much better because they actually look like regular people dancing as opposed to having this ultra polished air that you get with ballet dancers.
It comes down to realism. That, you know, in realism, if you're really looking at the stage and you're, you know, if you're in life walking, like I said, across the plaza, you can't be facing one direction just because it's better for you. And so how do you make it work?
And one of you are going to have one of these.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we've
But I will be 2 of those.
There'll be 2, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
2 of those. Okay, good. So, and you guys are coming. And I'm walking very slowly. And then go and take right to the center stage. And take it like here. Okay? And then the chorus, then you all place yourself around that. And take the entire stage, please. Take the entire stage. So you all come from there, please.
Super is short for supernumerary. In movies and TV, they're called extras. In opera, we call them supers. They're the crowds in the crowd scene, the waiters, the soldiers, the dancing girls, the ones who don't have to see the maestro, don't have to sing. They're the people that can move furniture and don't have to worry about which way they're looking and whether their sight lines are blocked. So they do a lot of crowd work and a lot of filling in space, and a lot of carrying and lifting. Each show is a little different depending on what the show is, when it's set, what the supers will be doing. Some shows we have only men, some shows only women, some only children. It depends on the look of the show. If they're soldiers, you really don't want a bunch of 5'4" tall guys. If they're waiters, you can be just about anybody and be a waiter. A lot of the folks we use depends on the costumes that come with the show and whether or not we can fit the people in the costumes.
When you have a new show, it brings in all aspects. You have the set designer, and then you have to come up with the props, and oftentimes you have to integrate. Sometimes you get to build new costumes. That's the best of all possible worlds. If you've got all of these, great artists there, you've got the singers and the directors and the designers, and they're all, trying to exercise their vision, and it's a very dynamic process, and it's a lot of fun to be involved with.
It is my duty here to try to convince people, public, critics, directors of the theaters, that this music deserves to be performed more than they are. Of course, it is not easy. It takes a solid voice from the singers, a very solid technique, powerful feeling, expression. But we have good singers, and we, with this production, are demonstrating that they can be done singing and not shouting.
I've achieved my lifelong ambition of getting a rubber chicken on stage at the San Diego Opera, and the director asked for one. This is not some sort of gag that the stagehands pulled. And happily, the woman that was helping us shop found a rubber chicken that when you squeeze it, it actually shrieks and clucks. So the singers had fun with it, the Maestro Mueller had fun with it, and it made the show, and it got a paint job today, and now it looks like a roasted chicken. But it's an actual, that's pretty interesting for opera world. We don't often have rubber chickens.